Welcome everyone to the battle between two world champions. Anand playing with the black pieces against Magnus Carlsen. Carlsen opens the game with one c4 and Vishy responds with the symmetrical English. G3 played here, the small little fianchetto of the bishop coming up, and Vishy develops his knight. Carlsen brings out his bishop, and Anand also plays g6. Knight to c3, both players kind of replicating each other's moves for the time being. d6 played, and now Magnus plays a slightly unusual move. He's played this before against Dmitry Yakovenko as well. You defend the knight, and your idea is to develop the bishop from this side. Knight f6 played by Anand, and now d3. This is the Global Chess League where Magnus is playing for the team SG Alpine Warriors, while Vishy is representing the Ganges Grandmasters. Bishop comes out to d7. You can see Vishy completing his development, although a very good move here would have been e6, and that would have given him quite a nice position. Rook to b8, and now Magnus simply castles it out. Vishy plays a6. He wants to start the queenside play with playing his pawn to b5, and Magnus jumps in with his knight. Now a good move here is e5 to block the bishop, but Anand plays the move e6. This is not a good idea against Magnus. It leads to a small disadvantage, and that is all that the Norwegian Grandmaster needs. d4, fantastic move, and Vishy plays b5, which is slightly surprising. You can see that Magnus is a bit surprised. He takes on c5, and of course you can't take here on c5 because after bishop takes, queen takes, the bishop here is hanging. So he takes first, queen takes b2, and now after d takes c5, the problem is that this c5 pawn is a massive weakness, and after takes, I think it will soon dawn on to Vishy that this is not great. This pawn cannot be defended. You can attack it with rook, and that's what Magnus does. He brings his rook, and all of a sudden Vishy in big trouble. But Anand is known for his active defense, and he says instead of defending that pawn passively, I am going to give it up. Queen to c3. And now the problem is if you try to defend it with knight a5, there is knight e5. And so e5, again active play. If you take on e5, knight e5, queen e5, there is rook e8. So queen takes c4 was played, and now queen e7 by black. Just h4. Magnus is slowly and steadily going to grind this down. He's a pawn up. He has an outside passer, but Vishy has activity, and he can try and hold this. Queen comes here. The bishop comes out and attacks the queen. And Vishy brings his queen back. Magnus brings his queen back to e3. And Anand pushes his pawn forward. But this pawn could become a weakness, because now after knight g5, which did happen, Anand is coming down to c2. He wants to fork here. But Magnus takes. Rook takes. And can you take the pawn here? Or is this, because if you take with the knight, there is knight c2, but Magnus says I'm going to take with the bishop. If you take here, I'll take with the queen, and if you play knight c2, which Vishy does, then I'll take that with my bishop. Queen takes queen, pawn takes, rook takes. So now Magnus is 2 pawns up, but look at these pawns. They are doubled and weak, but Magnus defends them with king f1. And now bishop c8. He's going here and attacking. This is actually not easy, but Magnus is known for maneuvering his pieces and putting them on the best squares. This is what he does. Knight f3, he realizes that the knight on d4 will not only defend the pawn but also attack the rook. So bishop a6, knight d4, rook comes up, and the king also moves up, defending everything. But Vishy says, you can't really make progress because I'm blocking your pawn. Well, Magnus hits the rook with knight c2, and after rook a4, He pushes his pawn forward. Step by step, Magnus is making progress. Now you want to get your bishop here and attack the knight. What I like about Magnus is his ability to maneuver pieces. Knight b4, the idea is knight d3, knight c5. King comes up and he brings his knight here, threatening knight c5. The rook endgame would be completely lost for Anand, so he cannot allow knight c5 move. Rook a5 and now rook b1. Good move. The bishop is attacked, so the pawn need not be worried about for the time being. Bishop d5. So now you can't go rook b3, and Magnus repeats. It's not easy actually. Vishy can also go back bishop a8 and wait, but he goes bishop e4. How should Magnus start making progress? Oh, knight b2. His point is let's go a4. That is what he wants to do. And king h6. What is the point? Do you want to go like this? Maybe that's his idea. But now knight c4, and if you go rook a4, I can go rook c1, bishop d5, and then there is knight d6. So these are little calculations which are done by Magnus very well, and now his pawn starts moving forward. Every single step that the a pawn takes brings white closer to victory. King h5, and now Magnus goes knight d2 again, switching his knight, maybe going to b3, pushing a5. Rook f6 check, and he brings his knight to f3, blocking the check. And Vishy comes in. He's putting pressure here, but Magnus doesn't care, because if you take rook takes king e2, the a pawn is queening, and so Vishy resigns. Well, maybe a bit premature, but actually not so easy, because you have to go back here, and then after rook a4, I mean white is going to win this sooner or later. The knight can jump here, and so very smooth positional game by Magnus, playing in the style that we have all come to know him, the way he grinds down his opponents. And Vishy, who is actually one of the most experienced players out there, just didn't play the opening so well, and once he was materially down, Magnus had absolutely no difficulties in converting the win. And you can see Magnus and Vishy analyzing. The interesting thing is, although Magnus won, it was Vishy's team that won the entire match. The Ganges Grandmasters beat SC Alpine Warriors.